We're just going to wait a few minutes for Mr. Lopresti to get here. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Election Commission meeting for today, November the 18th. We'll have a call to order, roll call. Margie, here.
Here.
Dan Lopresti. Here. Julia Geisinger.
Here.
I'm Scott Huff, I'm here. Sharon Levy will not be here today, so I'll be running the meeting as the vice chair. First order of business today is the approval of the amended minutes for June the 3rd of 2025. For those of you who weren't at the last meeting, there were some questions and we've asked for some updates of those minutes. So we're approving the minutes for the 2 meetings ago today. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Seeing or hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now we'll go to the approval of the minutes for the August 5th, 2025 meeting. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No. All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, it goes through. Okay, we'll have courtesy of the floor. First on the list is Deborah Biro. Ms. Biro, you have 5 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Deborah Biro, and I live in Nazareth. I would like to get the data from the voter rolls that when it was last purged, how many voters were purged, and how often the voter rolls are purged. This information does not contain anything that's personal, and it should be available to the public, and I should be able to receive my request. I looked up, there's a statute, it's 1901D, and it says, after not voting for 2 consecutive federal elections, a follow-up, the voter is flipped to inactive. And then they receive a letter asking for address verification. And then if they're inactive and they do not vote or request a mail-in ballot or an update to their registration for 2 more consecutive federal elections, these people should be removed from the voter roll. And I just want to verify that that's being done and when it's done and how often that's being done. The other point I would like to bring up is voters are being told after they wait in line that they already voted by mail. It happened at several precincts and stuff like that. They are given a provisional ballot, but a lot of these voters claim that they never asked for a mail-in ballot. So I think 1 or 2 things might have happened. The people might not have been aware that they requested a mail-in ballot, that it was on the form and they checked, to get the mail-in ballot. Or perhaps they were signed up, how people are registered at fairs and all this stuff. Somebody requested that they get a mail-in ballot, or there could be somebody that's requesting them and they're not aware. And I just feel we need to do something better for our voters, do something better to help them, because it gets very discouraging when you're waiting in line, sometimes up to 45 minutes, only to be told, well, no, you can't vote, sorry. You already voted by mail. The other issue I wanted to bring up is poll workers are being kicked out of the polls and not permitted to see the reconciliation in the poll books, between the poll books and the machines. And one of my questions is, why can't poll watchers see the information at the end of the night? Why are they being told to leave? And the last piece of information that I would like to request is when you do a breakdown, is there a way to break down the date that the mail-in ballots were received? Like say October 20th, we got, say 200 mail-in ballots dropped off. The 21st, we had 400. Could we get like a day-by-day breakdown of when how many mail-in ballots come in by day? I'm really curious to see how many come in on Election Day. And I don't know if it's possible to break it down by the 7 drop boxes we have, but that would be helpful too. That's all I have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next on the list is Joe Moyer.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm from Lower Mount Bethel Township. Over the course of the last couple of years now with the electronic voting machines, several people said to me, how do I know or how can I trust that my vote was appropriately cast, even though the card slips down and we tell people to look at the card, but they don't really, they're concerned about how these machines go. And one of the things I thought of, in having many years of corporate experience with good manufacturing, good practices for testing, I've asked in the past, maybe indirectly, but are the testing scripts for these machines public knowledge, and can they be reviewed for both what we call positive testing and negative testing? In the past we've experienced people where they touch any arbitrary area in the machine other than where they're supposed to identify the ballot, and it lights up a vote for something somewhere else on the machine. To me, that is inadequate testing and should never have happened. So one of the things I'd like to recommend is making those test scripts open to the public and open for comment, whether they are valid or comprehensive enough to build trust in our voting machines, electronic voting, because again, there's people who want to go to paper ballots only, and if we go back to the historical history of paper ballots, going back into the early 1900s, there is some real corrupt things could happen with those. So building confidence in our electronic voting would be very beneficial. So I'm recommending, the consideration to make the test scripts public for comment, and whether or not they are deemed appropriate for testing the confidentiality or the trustworthiness of our machines. It's no different than any good manufacturing process in prescriptions or in medical or nuclear power or whatever, it has to pass government scrutiny, be reviewed, and elections to me are just as important as making drugs. And so I'd like to see those test scripts made public, and there is nothing proprietary that any vendor could say that shouldn't be made public. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, you have about a minute and a half left, Ms. Bureau. No problem.
Deb Bureau again. The new demand voting centers, I just want to know if they're considered a mail-in ballot or a poll location.
Okay, is there anyone else? All right, seeing no one else, we'll move on to the solicitor's report. Mr. Vargo?
Sorry, is that better? I apologize. I know it came up when we were considering the satellite election office. There was litigation about this, I believe, by the Trump campaign in '24. The courts have held that satellite election offices are not polling places because they're not limited to a single district. Anyone can vote at a satellite elections office, just like the elections office downstairs here is not considered a polling place. And it is also not considered a meeting of the election board, which doesn't seem to make any sense, but that was one of the questions in the litigation. As everyone is no doubt aware, there was two issues came up during the election that led to either litigation or the perceived potential threat for litigation. With regard to the issue with the Easton 8 mail-in ballots, there was communication throughout the process with the candidates as well as their counsel if they identified counsel. The Democratic candidate did not identify counsel. The Republican candidate did identify counsel, so I did communicate with his counsel. After the election, his counsel indicated that they do not intend to file any challenge of the results. So that no litigation actually came from the issues with Easton 8. With regard to the design of the screen on the ballot tabulation or the ballot marking device used in the polling places. There was a challenge filed by two Republican candidates from Nazareth, well, two cross-filed candidates from Nazareth. There was also a call made by a candidate from, or representative of a campaign from, I believe, Plainfield Township with regard to the tax collector race. Now, tax collector is not a cross-filed race. You can't cross-file for tax collector, but you can be nominated by both parties if you are a successful write-in candidate. For instance, I believe the individual in question solicited nomination as a Republican, but was also written in as the Democratic candidate. So her name appeared as if she had been a cross-filed candidate. So the design used on the paper ballots is different than what's used on the ballot marking devices. The design on both has essentially remained unchanged since the devices were adopted back in, I believe, 2019. It might have been 22. I don't remember the exact date. In the past, before Pennsylvania eliminated straight ticket voting, for those of us who are old enough to remember the mechanical machines or the first round of electronic voting machines, those still use straight ticket voting. So in straight ticket voting, the candidates did appear in both columns. After the elimination of straight ticket voting and the changes in Act 77, The primary concern is that each candidate only be listed on the ballot once. The candidates who challenged the design used on the ballot marking device screen requested that they be listed under both the Democratic and Republican columns rather than just having Democrat/Republican put under their names. Judge Dally considered the positions. There was a motion on the Friday before the election. Judge Dally's decision didn't actually come out until after the election, but in his decision, he did indicate that the way that the ballot marking device is currently, that screen is currently designed is legal. Whether there is a different way to do it or should be reviewed by the Election Commission was not for Judge Dally to decide. His decision was, is the current way it's been done since 2020 or either 2019 or 2020 legal? He decided, his determination was yes, it was legal. Like I said, it is different than the design used on the paper ballots. There are slightly different rules with regard to the two. So that was the most significant litigation to arise over this election, was Judge Dally's determination that the current screen on the ballot marking device is legal. And then the ballot itself is what is printed out off to the side. But there was no challenge to the way things appear on the ballot itself. Other than that, there has been no further developments in federal or state litigation over the date requirement. So at this time, the requirement remains that undated or misdated ballots are required to be counted. Northampton County does still notify those voters and ask them to come cure their ballot. The idea is to have the highest percentage chance that a ballot should count. So although there has been no change at this point, those voters are still contacted to come in and cure a misdated ballot. There are also, voters are also offered the option to cure potentially naked ballots and unsigned envelopes. I say potentially naked ballots. Northampton County does not pre-canvass and is not allowed to pre-canvass. We cannot open a mail-in ballot before it's received, but as we discussed before the general election, the ballot sorting machine can sense whether an envelope seems, I forget if it's too light or too thin, it's one of the two, to have a security envelope in it, in which case the voter can be contacted and is provided an opportunity to go in private to put the put the envelope, to make a proper secure ballot so it can be counted. There are still a regrettable number of votes that don't count because they're naked. And that's something that we don't know until Election Day, until the canvass, and cannot be cured because once a naked ballot is opened, that ballot can be linked directly to the name on the outside of the envelope. Because the vote is not anonymous, there is no cure for a naked ballot once we get it. And there's still, despite the ever-increasing amount of printing the state has put on the secrecy envelopes, there are still people who sign their secrecy envelope or sign or initial and date a mistake on the ballot. Both of those things will invalidate your vote. It won't count. If you ever have a question, just call the elections office. If you made a mistake on your ballot, anything, before you do something, call the elections office. We want to make sure your vote counts. Northampton County does continue to segregate cured ballots and separately segregate the bad date, no date ballots. Just because there hasn't been litigation doesn't mean there couldn't in the future be litigation. So at this time, we've continued to segregate those so they are counted separately on Election Day. That's all I have for now. Does anyone have any questions?
Go ahead.
It's my understanding that there were 48 voters in the 8th that could have been affected by receiving the wrong ballot. Of those possible 48, do we have a number of how many people actually responded?
Yes, Mr. Comini will cover that in his
Okay.
report. He will have a complete report on what happened there. And I want to be clear, the total number of ballots that were potentially at risk is 50, but there were 2 that were addressed before. What happened was, we obviously had the one that was brought in that day, and we had one person came in before, like, based on what they saw on the weekend. So they were not at issue as far as potentially, they'd already been rectified, so they weren't counted as
So there were
potentially-
48 remaining.
There were 48 that could have received an erroneous ballot. The 2 that were rectified had already been rectified, so
And Mr. Committee will address
he
that.
has a full report on all of that, so,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Regarding Judge Daly's
Yes.
findings, I understand that he said that it was fine, you know, it is the way that it is, and that's fine, it's legal. But is there, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Comini also, why are the 2 ballots different? Number 1. And number 2, can the machines be programmed so that this situation doesn't come up again? Because I believe there's other counties that if you're a Republican, you're in the Republican column, regardless of, you know, the governor's holding the top office in that finding. So that's my question for you. Can the commission, because we didn't see this in the first place, so let's be very clear to the public on that. So my next question then is, can that be done, and is that something that we can do with the machines that we have here, if we so move to do that?
The answer is I don't know. And I don't know if those questions have even been asked of the provider. It's one of those things where and this is just my understanding, that one of the issues involved in the litigation is that there is no one, the election commission, my own term as solicitor, as even a solicitor for the county, let alone for the elections, and Mr. Comini's service as the registrar, all post-date the adoption of this particular form. So I don't know if the form had ever even been reviewed by, clearly had not been reviewed by the current election commission. To the extent that that information could be presented, what I would suggest is that would be up to the next election commission to determine before the next meeting. Although many people serve on the election commission for more than one term, technically we're going to have a new commission at the next meeting, and it is something that the next election commission may want to address at the next meeting. The questions the current election commission has regarding that can be passed on so that the next election commission is aware of them, Mr. Comini is aware of them, and hopefully we'll have some better information at that time. It's genuinely, it had never come up. One issue would be, other than unless there was a way to offer candidates which column, which could be problematic, the party that someone is not, in a cross-filed race, there is no way to actually know what party, I mean, you can look up the voter registration, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I know people who registered as a Republican because they were a member of the YR Club 40 years ago, but maybe haven't voted Republican in 20 years. I know people who are registered Democrats because their parents were Democrats and haven't voted for a Democrat in 40 years. And when cross-filed candidates run, it is entirely possible that a person who is a registered Democrat could only receive the Republican nomination. If they received enough Republican votes to get a Republican nomination, but were beaten by other Democratic candidates in a cross-filed race, other than simply telling, don't cross-file. Like, run, if you do not want to be affiliated with that other party, just don't cross-file, but that's not an option, like, it's a legal option to cross-file, and I understand why voters do it. So I genuinely don't know, but maybe we can get some answers. If you notice on the, I vote mail-in because I have to, because I'm here from 5:30 to usually about 2 in the morning on Election Day. But the mail-in ballots do not have separate categories. The candidates are all simply listed in a row. So I don't know, and it's something that perhaps Mr. Kamini and I can ask for more information. If it's questions that this election commission has, those questions can be passed on to the ES&S vendor. And then if the next election commission has the same questions, they can be addressed at that next meeting. I would assume that.
Because I think irregardless of what party the person's affiliated with, I think if they're cross-filed, they should be listed in both. And there's got to be a way, with all these security features we're told about with these electronic machines, that they can make it that if it's a choose one, that if they push the Republican person and their name appears in both spots, and they would be locked out of voting for that person twice. So there's got to be a way.
I do understand, but we come back to it, ballot says shall appear once. So that's really where the hangup is. I don't know if there's a different way to do it so that the name still only appears once, but it's clearer that it's a cross-filed candidate, or that I genuinely don't know, but the questions we can put to ES&S and see if they have an alternative suggestion. I do not know what other counties that use the same ballot marking devices we do use. I believe Philadelphia County uses them, but I feel like cross-filed candidates in Philadelphia County are relatively rare. There are some other counties that use the machines that may have cross-filed candidates, and maybe ES&S can tell us what they do there, if they do the same thing or if they do something different. But I do hear the concern, and when it was brought to us, it was just something that no one had ever asked before. So I don't know if it had just never come up, but if ES&S has fielded that question before, we can put it to them and see if there are other solutions, and then we can let the next election commission know what those results were.
Is it your position that the election commission, since our signatures appear on the ballots, should be viewing them and making any findings or recommendations that we see on them before they are printed or before they are put out to the public?
What I would say is that the election commission, to the extent the election commission wishes to review the ballot design, the time to do that would be at the meeting. It would have to happen in a public meeting. So the time to do that would be in the meeting. The most logical time to do it is there's always a meeting set 13 weeks prior to the election, because that's when ballot measures have to be approved to be put on the ballot. The question would come in a municipal election. There's actually 100. Every precinct technically has a different ballot. So it's 150 some ballots. So the question, would the election commission want to review the design in general or the specific layout of each 154? I genuinely don't know, but the time to the extent that the election commission would want to review the ballot design, the time to see what the ballot design looks like and to talk about it would be at the meeting prior to the election.
My next question is regarding our meetings, or the commission meetings. We're currently scheduled to do 4 a year. There's been multiple occasions in the 2 terms that I've been on the commission where we've asked for a special meeting for some clarification on things. All those times we've been denied, even when we had unanimous support across the board. So my question to you is 4 adequate in your opinion, or should we have more scheduled, even if they have to be canceled because maybe there's no business, but we want to talk about things or discuss things? Can we have the opportunity, should these commissions have the opportunity to do that?
So
Are we stuck with the schedule that the registrar gives us, or are we able as a commission to, obviously there's the dates that we have to do, I get that. But if we want to meet there's a lot of time between August 5th and Election Day.
So
There's too much time.
what would have to happen is that would have to be addressed at the logical time to address that is at the formation meeting, the first meeting of the year. So at the formation meeting, if there's, at that point, there could be meetings scheduled if the Election Commission wanted. I believe they could make the request then. That gives adequate time to plan and prepare for those things.
But there's nothing limiting
There's
us
no set,
regulatory reason.
no, there is no set minimum or maximum number of times the Election Commission has to meet under the current, I don't believe, under the current Home Rule Charter. I mean, the Election Commission has to meet 13 weeks, at least 13 weeks before the election, and should meet immediately after the election, as we're doing now. And there's always the possibility of the need for a special meeting the second Friday after the election to deal with provisional ballots. So that's what I could say, is there's no, but I don't know that there's any maximum number other than the ability of the election committee to meet, the availability of the location, those logistical issues that would have to be addressed as far as scheduling the meeting goes.
I have a question in that regard, too. So what are the parameters that need to be met? Since we had across-the-board agreement and we were told, no, we cannot meet, what authority do we have to meet, and how does that come about, if not by majority?
So the use of facilities is coordinated through the Director of Administration. So what would happen is if the Election Commission needs a special meeting, that gets coordinated through the Director of Administration. And probably also secondarily with council to ensure if the meeting is to take place in this chamber, that also has to be arranged with council. Some of it is also going to be subject to my availability, Mr. Kamini's availability, and the Sunshine Act requirements, which would require posting an agenda at least 24 hours in advance. So obviously a meeting would need to be, there would need to be a determination far enough out that availability could be secured and the agenda could be reviewed and then an agenda could be posted. Because if you don't post the agenda 24 hours out, the commission can meet but can't do anything.
Right, but on the last one that we asked for before Election Day, we sent the email on Thursday and requesting a meeting on Monday, which is well in advance of 24 hours, and we're told on, I believe it was Friday afternoon at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon is when we got an email saying, sorry, you're not going to be available, Mr. Kamini's not available, and there's nothing we can do. So there was plenty of time to do this, and I understand that, there's an argument that, well, it was the day before Election Day and people were busy and all that stuff. If the five of us were making the time to come out to hear what this person, to find out what was going on, because we didn't know, I can't believe for a minute that there wasn't 30 minutes or an hour of time that we couldn't have carved out and said, we can come up here. I spent that morning here with Ms. Geisinger and saw people walking around in the courthouse and that we requested to be there. Why couldn't, it goes against the grain as far as I'm concerned. Our signatures appear on these ballots, okay? We're the ones who sit here when things go wrong, not the administration. We sit up here and we get lit up. We got lit up in 2023. We get emails from constituents all the time about the problems. We're the ones that have to hear about it, but we're at the mercy of getting the information, and then when we ask for the information, we can't get it. So I think that for the incoming commission, whether any of us are going to be on that or not, I don't know, but I think there needs to be some understanding that these commissioners can't be sitting on the sidelines all the time and being pushed to the side and being told, well, this is the way it's going to be, until something drastic bad happens, and then all of a sudden we have to be the face of it. We're taking this all very seriously, and I don't mean to be, but it's very frustrating. For 4 years, I've been on two terms now, two terms. This is three, right? Three. It's just a continuing course of conduct that seems to be counterproductive for what we're trying to do and to be transparent for the public.
I do understand and appreciate the concerns, and with regard to Monday, it just logistically was not the availability of myself or Mr. Kamini to be here on Monday the day before Election Day just could not happen. An agenda would have had to have been posted essentially on Friday. And at that point, I believe that a fair amount of information had been provided as far as what was going on.
There was no information, no, there was no information about this litigation. I found out about it because I got a call from one of the petitioners and saying, and I was like, what are you even talking about? I had no idea what was even happening. And, you know, I spoke at the last county council meeting, and the acting administrator came up and told things that weren't accurate. And one of the things was about you sending us an email about what was happening. The only thing you sent us an email about was that you had gotten an email from this lady, and I responded by saying, for transparency purposes, I got the same email. And then I think you said you got the same email. There was nothing about any litigation in there at all. But yet, he came up here and told county council that you had informed us about it. We knew nothing.
Well, there was an awareness of the issue, and there was awareness of the county's response to the issue. Because it wasn't just that you were not just told that an email had been received. You were also included with the response to the email. The litigation was literally, I was called by the judge's staff from my office and had to run across the street to respond to that's how little notice there was. There was literally, the county, because I had at least had the email the day before and had some time to research it, I did waive any objection at that point to the lack of notice and the timeliness of the request. But things were literally moving that quickly. And until my expectation was that we would receive a decision before Election Day and that I would be able to provide you with all the information at once. Unfortunately, we did not actually receive the court decision until, I believe it was the evening of Wednesday evening, which until then there was nothing to say. We didn't know what the answer was going to be. The fair implication was that the judge was not going to order us to redo the machines if he didn't. Whether it even could have been done, that order would have had to have occurred by Monday, but there was no such order. So until I received the judge's order, and then once we had it, but then the election had already occurred. So to the extent that I did not send a copy of the petition, I did not send out copies of the petition to the Election Commission. I do apologize for that. It was simply the timing was that short. The notice, there was basically no notice. I received a phone call from the judge's staff at my office, came to court Friday, had time for argument, and then was waiting for a decision, and the decision came later than I expected. So.
Something you wanted to ask? Go ahead. I'll take a break.
In regards to our having an opportunity to review the ballot prior to the election, perhaps at that 13-week mark, I am asking that the board would have the opportunity to look at the testing protocol as well. Given the fact that we had problems in the past with the testing protocol, where we had the judge retention questions, not this election, but the election prior when there were problems with, I would like to be given the opportunity to review the testing protocol.
And logic and accuracy testing is open, and I know that
But by that time, the testing protocol is already in place.
correct.
So I would prefer to have the opportunity to look at what that testing protocol is going to look like prior to make sure that the machines are being tested in a fulsome manner.
And we can add that to Mr. Kamini's report with regard to how that testing works. Sure, absolutely.
I would like to review whether or not the testing had changed from the previous time, was it 2019? When we had what was the year that we had it was just 2 years ago, 23. If the testing protocol has changed for those yes/no answers, it was my expectation that it would have changed. It is my understanding that it did not change. So I would like to be able to review that.
And I believe Mr. Kamini can address that, but my understanding is that the testing protocol did change to ensure that the yes/no answers are not tested. In other words, it's not all yes or all no, that they are tested in a manner that would reveal whether or not they were misprogrammed. That's my understanding, is that the logic and accuracy testing.
So it was not that the first candidate would have been tested for yes, the second no, the next one yes, the next, I would expect that it would be tested, the first candidate, both yes and no, second candidate, yes and no. I could be wrong about that testing protocol, but that's something that I would just like to verify.
And I don't know if he's prepared to respond to that today, but I know Mr. Kamini can give a much more complete response on that.
Okay,
Because,
thanks.
Like, that's probably not something he's prepared to discuss today, having not been prepared for it.
And it's something
but-
that really, quite honestly, doesn't probably matter at this point because there weren't problems with it until the next election. But given the fact that we had that in the past, I would just, and I understand that that's the responsibility of the company, of the machine company to do that, provide the testing protocol. But I also think that because we had to sit and listen to 300 angry people, like Scott said before, I would just like assurance that the testing protocol is adequate so
Oh,
that we're
absolutely.
sure that there's not a problem prior to an election.
And like I said, I am not a computer person.
Nor am I, but I'm pretty
but-
sure I can look and
but
see
it
on the
is
protocol if it
My
tests
understanding
fully.
that the protocol was changed and the test decks are preserved as records. So all the,
We can now look at those test decks because they are preserved.
they would be election records. They would have to be requested and reviewed like any other election record under the county's policies for reviewing election records. But yes.
So as a board, we can request that as a board or as an individual? I need to request that.
So what I would say is election records may be reviewed by registered voters of the county. Now, the protocol is the actual process is a little more complicated than that, but yes, you can request those records.
So then I have a piggyback question to that, which is, on the Monday before the election, Ms. Geisinger and I went to the elections office and we asked to see a paper copy, a blank paper copy, of both a mail-in ballot for the Nazareth School Board, that included the Nazareth School Board race, and a paper copy of the sample ballot for the machines. We were denied access to that.
The
Now-
sample, just so we're clear, the sample, the screen, the ballot marking device screen, those are posted online.
Online. I understand
And
that.
they're posted well in advance of the deadline.
Yes, those are online, but I'm talking about what the folks can see that hangs on the wall in the sample ballot that hangs on the wall in the voting space, and a mail-in ballot. Those are not online.
And like I said, it's been a few years since I voted in person, and Mr. Kamini can probably address this, but my assumption is that the sample ballot is the same as what's posted. Like whatever's
Regardless if it's online or
what's
not.
posted in the election, what was posted in the election, in the polling place, I believe, is the same as what's on the screens.
If I
But-
could, our request was for the mail-in ballot, to see if that was the same as what people were seeing on Election Day, and we were denied.
Well,
And with no logical reason except that that's the way it's done. There was no other reason given.
In fact, after that, we were told to come upstairs, and if we could get permission from the county administration to view them, he would allow us to see them. And when we came up here, we made a request. The the administrative assistant there in the office we asked to speak to Mr. McClure about it. And shortly thereafter, Mr. McClure walked out and didn't say a word to us. And then we were told there was nothing we can do. Now, at the county council meeting, again, the administrator came and said that the administrative assistant was talking to him and not to Mr. McClure, although we specifically said Mr. McClure. But again, it gets away from the point. The point that I'm trying to make is, why were we able to, should we have been shown that information we requested? It's a simple yes or no.
it's not that simple. Blank ballots are not given to anyone unless you're getting it as part of your mail-in ballot packet. We do not, under any circumstances, want unmarked blank potential ballots anywhere
So in the
outside the
office,
controlled environment.
right, so the
So
controlled
it's-
environment being the office, the election office downstairs, us standing there with election workers there while we view it. That's it. Just to look at it and, that's it, not take it out, not fill it out, nothing, look at it. Our signatures are on it.
I do understand that, and it's not an issue I've ever looked into.
But you just told Margie that any voter can come in and request to see accuracy results, testing results, this, that, and thing, but
Well-
you can't come and see a ballot?
Election records are accessible. It's not just that you have to be, it's not just you have to be a voter. It can't be records that are currently in use by the Elections Division. So while the records are being used, and it has to be done, it's done when there is someone available from elections to stand there with the person reviewing it's not just that any voter can walk in and look at an election record. There's a protocol involved as far as what the regulations are around reviewing election records.
We weren't given any such information as far as regulations, and this was a controlled environment. There were plenty of election workers there. What we were told is specifically that the executive told Mr. Kamini from day one, I assume, and this has obviously come up before because he knew what the rule was, I am not allowed to give you that.
Well-
That's what we were told, and that's not written anywhere that I could find.
And I can't answer to that. All I know is on the Monday before Election Day, there's a lot going on. That's all, and I genuinely don't know, so.
I think we're just looking for some clarity. And again, I think this will speak to what hopefully we'll discuss is there are some very unclear areas on the election commission. We're given the responsibility to put our signatures on and say, hey, this is a secure election, this is for the people, this is so everybody has a chance to vote fair and square. It's Mr. Kamini's job to make sure that happens as well. We're oversight. It's not clear in the document. I think this speaks to how important it would be to clarify our role, because it is apparently not to look at ballots the day before election. It's apparently not to get information in a timely manner to make any difference. And I think those things should be meted out and clarified.
My last question for you, Mr. Vargo, is, and I don't know if you had an opportunity, I think you said you did not, but I made a presentation to council a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things I brought up is that I've known you for 40 years, and we did scouts together in Little League, and I find you to be knowledgeable and very fair. But you're an assistant county solicitor, and so you're working for the administration, and you're also working for us. And I truly believe that there's a conflict there. Because these things that we're talking about that unfortunately you're now put in the middle of, and I'm sorry if my ire seems like it's directed towards you, but it just seems that the commission should be able to choose its own solicitor, like other boards and whatnot can. And, you know, part of my presentation to council was to say that, to request that council puts a commission or puts a committee together to look at the Home Rule Charter as a whole, but specifically to look at the part that addresses the Election Commission. Because it says, the Election Commission shall administer the system of elections and the registration of voters under applicable law. I'm going to steal your word here. It's very ambiguous. So it can be interpreted how we want to interpret it. It can be interpreted the way you want to interpret it. It can be interpreted the way Mr. McClure wants to interpret it. And it's not clear, and it's very unproductive in my opinion. And so I would ask that you put together a letter to council and make that request also. Request that they do what they need to do to get this cleared up.
The only thing I would suggest is that it would probably be most productive to address that letter to the incoming council, to the extent that even if the current council wanted to do such things, they're 4 of them, I believe, will be new next year. So I think, and I don't disagree. Many of the issues we've discussed come down to the fact that the structure in Northampton County is unique. There are not, first of all, we're a home rule county. Not every county chooses to be a home rule county. Second, our home rule charter, especially with regard to the Elections Commission, is not a model of clarity, because the code speaks to a board of elections. We don't have one. In a non-home rule charter, the executive and legislative branches are united in a commission, and the commissioners also serve as the board of elections. So in a non-home rule charter county, it's all the same, and then the meetings aren't an issue because, well, the commission meets probably once or twice a month. The statute specifically lays out that the county solicitor shall serve as the solicitor to the Board of Elections. So to that extent, that's what is set forth in the election code, or in the law. I think that's been a recurring theme, is the lack of clarity, particularly in our unique version of the election code, has caused some confusion, I think would be a way to put it. And yeah, I think to the extent that the commission would like a letter written, I can do that, but I believe it would be most properly addressed to the incoming council with regard to.
I think we can, I think it would be fair, because we don't know who's going to be on the next commission either, that it can go to both the current council and go to the next. I mean, Miss Vargo Hefner will be here, might not be the president, but she'll be here. You know, there's other folks that, you know, Mr. Giovanni, there's going to be other people that are going to be here. So this is our commission now making the request. I think it's only fair that it goes to them now. And then, yeah, great. If you want to send it to the next one too, by all means, do it. And maybe you address that in the letter as well.
Assuming I'm still here. So.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else on the solicitor report?
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the registrar's report. Mr. Kamini.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. So I guess before my report, I'll try and answer some of these initial questions that came up. In regards to a couple of Ms. Bureau's questions, we follow the Department of State guidelines on how we purge our voter rolls. So there are set dates and set information and times that we have to do certain things. And again, we follow what the Department of State outlines. We do additional stuff where voters can actually cancel their own voter registration. So we get those forms in. They can willingly cancel their voter registration if they, move out of town or whatever. It's not the first thing. It's somebody's top of mind when they leave a county or wherever that they need to change their voter registration. So they may register at their new location and still be registered here. The system is in place where we will eventually eliminate them. Now, it is not illegal to be registered in 2 states. It is illegal to vote in 2 states. Okay, so that registration may still be there, but it's because they forgot about it. But we work through a system that will eventually eliminate them. We deal with information from the Department of Health and obituaries, where if a registered voter passes away, we're able to remove their voter registration based on that information from the Department of Health through a published obituary, or even from the Register of Wills if they provide us with information. Those are all legal remedies to remove somebody from the voter rolls. As far as somebody being told they can't vote if they receive the mail-in ballot that they weren't aware that they applied for. Yes, there is a permanent list. While you're on the permanent list, you do receive ballots twice a year. That's what you signed up for. If you forget, we still send you a ballot. You are not required to send it back. But as a check, if you do have a mail-in ballot, the system will tell us you do. You can go to your polling location, but if you do not turn that mail-in ballot in, you have to vote provisional. You are not turned away from voting. As far as poll watchers being inside when the counting is being done, I believe the statute is clear that the room can only contain poll workers while the counting is being done, but we post the results on the door, on a bulletin board in the polling location as soon as they're done. So anybody can view that information. It's up to the location how long they leave it up, but we ask that our poll workers are required to at least post one set of machine tapes and counts for that election in that location. Scott, you asked why the two ballots are different. Different counties have different voting systems. We have mail-in ballots and we have a ballot marking device. Lehigh has mail-in ballots and they also have a central scanner from ES&S. That's the same exact ballot. So whatever they mail out, that's the same ballots they use in their polling location. They fill it out in the polling location and they feed it into a scanner and the scanner counts your vote. Here we have mail-in ballots and we have a ballot marking device which has a distinct ballot on the screen. Those are the sample ballots we provide. You're not going to your polling location with a mail-in ballot, so you need to see what you're going to be seeing when you go into the voting machine. So that's why we post our sample ballots online, which is a direct version of the screen that you're going to see. And we also provide 3 large poster-size ballots at each location in English and in Spanish. So that's 6 ballots that we can post poster-size across the polling location for voters to see when they go in. So that's why the difference is between whether we can provide the mail-in ballots online. That's a different discussion. We can certainly look into that. But as of right now, the only sample ballots we put online are the ones that are on the screen. As for limitations, that again, as Mr. Varga pointed out, that was something we would have to address with the provider. Moving forward, new administration coming in, we don't know where the winds are going to blow. So as of right now, that would be a discussion for ES&S, which is our current provider. Margie, you asked about the testing protocol. We changed the protocol after 23. So we changed it in 24, and it has been that way moving forward. So we went from a pattern, the original pattern we had in that election did not capture the yes/no. We recognize that. So we changed the pattern to catch yes/no responses. We had a yes/no question, I believe, in 24 for a term limit question. So there was a question on there. So now that the pattern, rather than being a 1-2 pattern, it's a 1-2-3 pattern. And also in addition for this municipal election, because we had nine yes/no questions, I believe, we took an additional step during the LNA to test 2 specific precincts answering yes/no for each question and then no yes for each question. Okay, so we took that extra step during the LNA to ensure that while the pattern is working, also we took that extra step to make sure the yes/nos are being captured correctly.
So while not every machine may have been tested for that, you did set aside 2 precincts to
Yes.
test that alternating pattern in both directions?
Correct.
Thank you. That
welcome.
answers my
Sure.
question.
And then, should you have the commission have to review the ballots in public, Mr. Vargo outlined a scenario where it would probably have to happen 13 Tuesdays before the election. Unfortunately, our ballot is not approved by the Department of State until probably a month and a half before the election. So I'm not sure how that works, but I wanted to address it at least knowing that this is what we go through. The mail-in ballots, I think, pretty much are standard for the most part across the Commonwealth. Those are approved by the Department of State. They look at the state races. They look at the instructions that we provide to the voter. They approve those. And then we go through a number of proofs with the voting machine company as well. Okay. All right.
Can I ask you a question about the,
Sure.
you made the comment about Lehigh and their ES&S system.
Yes.
Do we have the ability to match the ballots with the systems that we have?
No.
So is that something that is, how do I want to ask this question? Is it just a programming thing, or is it because, is is one system better than the other? Is,
Our system gives you the ability to check your ballot before you cast it.
I get, yeah.
Yep, so.
So
with-
you're saying
with-
in Lehigh, they fill it out, it goes in the
It goes to
machine,
the
that's
scanner, you
it?
have no idea. You don't see anything. So ours at least gives you the ballot printout to match what you voted on the screen. That's the big difference.
But we can't match what the screens look like. We can't match the screen to,
No, because it's the program, it's a program issue. And again, it was something that if we want to go that route, we would have to check with the SNS to see the limitations, what they are. But as of right now, I'm not aware of any. Sure.
A good question for the vendor, because it is programmable, so it's hard for us to imagine, but if you ask them the question, they might tell us the alternatives, and then the question is, which of those alternatives would be legal in Pennsylvania? So I think that would at least allow us to know, or the next commission to know what the range of possibilities are. One of them might seem more attractive, so it is possible. So I think it's a good question to ask the vendor.
And as far as your question with regards to the having a candidate on both sides, yes, it might be easy if it's a vote for one. The machine would not allow you to vote for more than one person. But if it was a vote for two or vote for three, what's to stop a voter from choosing that person twice?
well, and that's what I'm
a
saying.
programming
Yeah,
issue.
that's another
Right.
question that I was asking, like,
Right.
if they hit one side, should lock them out under the other category.
Yeah, but since there's no straight line partying voting, it doesn't work that way for any of the races. But that, again, that's an ESNS question we can certainly address.
And then one other question I had for you. Ms. Biro had a question about the breakdown of mail-in ballots when they come in. Is this all public knowledge that she can come and request downstairs and get that information?
Mr. Vargo, that would be a question for our solicitor.
I don't know if the records exist. To the extent they exist, they may be available as election records or as a straight right to know request. I don't honestly know because I don't know what actually exists. I'd have to sit down and talk to you and take a look at them and see what we do have. There are certain exceptions, so we just have to make sure none of the exceptions apply. So it is possible, but I don't know.
Okay. All right, so first off, successful election. It does take a village, so I first want to start off by thanking all of the other county offices that assisted us during this election: Public Works, Custodial, the Sheriff's Department, Court Administration, all of our poll workers, our retirees that came in and volunteered to stuff mail-in ballots and to open mail-in ballots during Election Day, our maintenance department, my staff, Amy, who was a warrior in this department, and I would not be where I am today if I did not have her knowledge behind me. And lastly, I would like to thank my wife and my family who did not sign up for me, putting in the amount of hours I put in 4 months out of the year, but they have my back and they understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. So for my report, our 90-day post-election deadline for our grant is due February 2nd of next year. Some final statistics for 2024. We had 229,230 registered voters. We had 224,000 votes cast, which was a 40% turnout. Congratulations. That is fantastic. From where we were at in the primary, I did not assume we would be that high. I am elated that we did get to that number. We had 61,339 in-person voters. That is 60% of the votes cast. We had 30,542 mail-in ballots, which was 33% of the votes cast. We had a return rate of 92% for all mail-in ballots we sent out. And we had 343 provisional ballots, which is about less than 1% of the votes cast that were officially counted. Just for some comparison purposes, in 2023, we had 25,422 absentee mail-in ballots, so about 5,000 more in this election, and we had 199 provisionals for this one. We had approximately 6,400 ballots come through our 7-county drop boxes during the election. Up to and including the October 8th mail-in ballot deadline, our on-demand site here in the courthouse saw a total of 457 voters, and our satellite office in the Fowler Center saw a total of 44 voters across the 11 days we were open there. 44 across the 11 days. And I will mention we were open from 9 to 5 every day that we were there. We were open 3 days a week for 4 weeks. Okay. We completed our election code required 2% statistical sample audit during the official canvass, where we randomly select 4 precincts, 1 from each of the 4 county council districts. We are required to sample a total of 2% or 2,000 ballots, whichever is less, of the total election day and/or mail-in ballots cast. So 2% of our ballots was 1,832 ballots. The precincts that were selected totaled 1,845 ballots. We ran the election day ballots through a DS-450 scanner, which was not in use during election day, so it was a separate scanner for this audit. The scanner report is supposed to match the reported results from our election day, and for that chosen precinct, our 2% audit matched correctly in each of the selected precincts. We were also selected this time for the risk limiting audit, the RLA, through the Department of State. The random selection was for the retention question for Judge of the Superior Court, Alice Beck Dubois. In the RLA, we have to hand count 1 canister of election day ballots and 1 batch of mail-in ballots as directed through a random drawing by the Department of State. That audit was also conducted, and we matched correctly in both of the selected batches. We had over 9,500 write-ins for the canvass. Now, that sounds like a lot, but you have to take into account that people circle the write-in bubble and don't write any name into it. They may write Mickey Mouse. They may write whatever. So out of that 9,500 write-ins that went to the canvass to adjudicate, the list was reduced to 593 total legitimate write-ins. Of those 593 write-ins, we had 411 ties in 116 different offices. We will be conducting casting of the lots for ties this Friday, November 21st at 9 o'clock. It will be streamed on the county YouTube channel. The vast majority of these tie votes were for election day poll workers, judges, and majority minority inspectors. So with the majority minority inspectors, I will point out that if there is a 2-way tie, 1 vote each, the winner of the casting will be the majority, the loser will be the minority. And there are also some tax collectors and auditors, and of course Chapman, which is all write-ins, as we know. So there was write-ins across the board there. Once we have the 2026 calendar from Department of State, we will create a schedule for next year's commission meetings. The first meeting will be Tuesday, February 17th, 2026, which is the requirement to address any possible ballot initiatives. That's 13 Tuesdays before the election. Okay, so that will be the next meeting. Outside of that, we can, the next commission will certainly decide on the dates. As far as polling locations, we had very few official reports of disruptions or long lines. It was busy, and some locations have asked to review machine numbers for the future. We reevaluate these numbers after every election for future elections. We do have a finite number of machines, which is 320. And we need to keep some spares in place. So we reevaluate those numbers before every election. Our last 2 municipal elections in 21 and 23, with current mail-in balloting laws in place, had about a 22% turnout based on election day versus total registered voters. In this election, we had 27% based on registered voters. So that 5% increase saw some larger crowds than normal. We deployed only 1 additional machine to Forks Eastern 2. They started the day with 3 machines. They had a consistent hour wait from opening at 7 o'clock in the morning until about 11 o'clock in the afternoon, until we received a phone call that they could probably use some help. They stated that the current staff and poll books allocated were sufficient, but they would like an extra machine, and that was deployed around 12:15. We had 1 of 2 machines stop working in Graysdale. The ballot feeder was not working properly. So we had deployed a replacement machine, and there was no disruptions or delay in voting while we were getting that machine out there. 1 of 3 machines in Lower Saucon 2 had an issue. We sent a tech to the site. It was discovered that the cable, so if you imagine the screen is a monitor, and the cable internally had broken, so it was not able to be fixed. We had a discussion with the judge. They had 3 machines, so 1 machine went down. We had a discussion with the judge that if he thought that he needed an extra machine, at the time he said no, he could probably get by. We offered him that if his lines did pick up further into the day, that he could call in and we would release an additional machine. He did not call back, and they finished the day with 2 machines and no disruptions or delays. Finally, there was a power outage in Lehigh Township, Pennsville. We were alerted around 1 o'clock. The machines did remain on battery power. We had emergency management staff on site here in the elections office. They were aware of it. They released a generator to that site. That generator was delivered in 45 minutes after the initial report. There were no disruptions to voting during the outage, and the power was restored about 3:45 in the afternoon. As far as Easton 8, the Easton 8 wrong ballot, we were made aware of a voter in Easton 8, District 2, that had received a ballot for Easton 10 West. While we believe this was an isolated incident, we made immediate efforts to conclude whether this was in fact the case. During our investigation, it was found that there was a possibility that an additional number of voters may have in fact received the wrong ballot. We were able to narrow down the specific date to the very first day we mailed out 25,000 ballots. Upon discussion with the administration and the solicitor, an initial plan to contact each individual by phone and email was implemented. This was over a 2-day period. We were able to contact some, others we left messages. After the 2-day period, we had a list of voters whom we were not able to contact directly, whether it be a bad phone number, bad email, or they just did not call us back. We then instituted a plan to remail ballots to those individuals on the list who had already returned their original ballot. This ballot would be used as a replacement for their original ballot when it came back. The second ballot was also sent to those individuals who had not yet returned their ballot. We canceled the original ballot, so if they did return that second one, they could not be counted twice. So we issued them a new packet. Of the original mailing, as Mr. Vargo indicated, it was 50, 29 returned replacement ballots, 12 returned an original ballot but not a replacement, so the original ballot was counted accordingly. 2 requested to keep their original ballot that was received by the office. 3 went to the polling location. 2 surrendered their original packet and voted on the machine. 1 did not return their packet and voted provisionally. And then 4 did not return any ballot nor vote in person. So that is my report. Are there any other questions?
Anyone
on
have
that
any
report?
questions?
I don't have a question, but that's pretty remarkable. Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
That was a good response to a difficult situation that was human error, not machine related, and you guys did a great job responding to it. We really appreciate all of your time and effort. I had the opportunity to visit 21 polling places the day of the election, and at every single polling place, things were running smoothly. The staff seemed beautifully trained. Everything seemed to be running well. The only place where I saw lines that were maybe a little bit longer than average would have been at Forks. Other than that, everything seemed to be, even though there were heightened numbers everywhere, everything seemed to be running smoothly at the sites that I had the opportunity to visit. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank your staff.
I will.
Thank you, Mike.
Chris, I also want to thank you and the staff. It sounds like you did a bang-up job. And I also appreciate all the information you provided. I think it really added some clarity to a complex and a moving situation there. With respect to the, there were like 3 instances of machines that went down during the day, I think, right?
Yes.
You didn't mention this, but I want you to confirm that there was no chance that votes were lost. Votes
No,
weren't lost when those
absolutely
machines-
not. The one that was, the cable went, that was never even actually used. The one where the ballot feeder would not go through, it was never used because the ballots wouldn't feed into the machine, and then the other one was a replacement, so, yep.
I'll just say that I went around to a few places too, and everybody was doing a great job.
Thank you, thank you.
I do have a question though. I did send to you a report regarding something in Palmer with an election worker there, that there was some public complaints about something where a poll worker was alleged to have told people they couldn't get in line at 7:30.
Forks.
Forks.
And we are addressing the issue.
Okay.
Yes, we are addressing the issue internally.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Chris, I'd be remiss if I didn't also thank you and your staff. You
Sure.
did a terrific job.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. I am here for the old and new business as well, if you have any questions.
All right. All right, so we'll move on to old business. We have one item on here. If you want to come back, if you want to come on back, come on back. was going to ask if we should just do it in your part, but it's going to,
I said it'd be available, so yeah.
all right. So I have some questions about the satellite office.
Yes.
Obviously, that was an area of back and forth at our last meeting, and it passed through on a 3-2 vote. Now, you said you had 44 voters there over 12 days?
11.
11 days?
11 days.
Okay. Can you just give us a little bit of, because we were told that we would get the data?
Sure.
So can you tell us what the process was that the county went through to secure that space? I know that Washington Township said no.
Right.
So can you tell me what happened at the Fowler Center and what
I'll
happened
do my
there?
best.
Okay.
So,
Could you also, pardon me, could you also include costs with that?
yep, sure, will do. Okay, so Fowler Center was chosen because of the fact that there was a drop box on site. Because with this satellite office, we were not accepting people turning in a ballot, because then the security issue would have been, how do we get those ballots back to the county? Where are they sitting? So in a security sense, we chose that site because there's a drop box in the lobby. So the voter was able to fill out their ballot, carry it with them, and put it in a drop box as they headed out the door. So that's item number one. We were provided by the Department of State secure laptops to use. Our IT department was involved in order to get us a hotspot to connect to the internet while we were there, to upload to Shore, to get those, so people could come in, just like downstairs, fill out an application. We had a printer there to print the ballots. They would be able to fill out a ballot in a room behind a screen. We would give them all the supplies that they needed. Then they could vote and leave. As far as cost, it did not cost us anything. We had an MOU with Northampton County Fowler Center for a specific amount of time. It was not a lease, it was just an MOU. The administration worked that document out with the Fowler Center. They let us use the space. We had a printer. We had two on-demand ballot printers in our office. One of those was the one we used. We only needed one in the office because of municipal, so we used the other one at the Fowler Center. As far as other security for envelopes, ballot stock, our election staff that was working that day transported those things back and forth every day. They grabbed the laptops, they grabbed the phone, they grabbed the ballot stock and the envelopes, and every morning they came into the office and picked them up, and every night they came back and dropped them off. So none of that information was left at the satellite office. Other than that, anything I missed?
So at the satellite office, what could, if I was John Q. voter, I never voted before, could I come there and register? Could I come there, register, vote right away?
Yes, you couldn't. You can, just like downstairs. That's basically the extent of what you could have done. You could have registered to vote, and you could have picked up a mail-in ballot. Now, when people come in to do that in our office, if you're not registered to vote, it's the same thing on the on-demand site downstairs. If you come in to register to vote, it takes about a half hour for the process to say that you are, the HAVA checks that we have to run it through with DMV. It takes about a half hour. So if you want to wait, you can certainly wait the half hour, and then we can give you a ballot after that passes through. So those are the two things you could have done at the office: apply, register to vote, and apply for mail-in ballot. That's it. No other services were
Of
offered.
those 44 people that you had, were they all people that just came in to vote, or
Yep.
did you had?
Yes, as far as I'm aware right now, none of them had to register to vote. They were all current registered voters.
And is it, again, I know there's a new commission coming, but is it your plan to continue to have this satellite office in the future? Did you find that it was a worthwhile exercise?
I think it was proof of concept that it can work. If we continue it is another discussion,
Yeah.
but as a proof of concept, it worked for what it was meant to do.
Thank you.
Sure.
I guess the only question I have, Chris, is regarding staffing, something like that. It's conceivable that if in the future the commission would decide to, or the county would decide to continue with the satellite office, we need to be looking at staffing needs, because you're going to have more people
Yes.
voting. I mean, this time you had 44.
Yes.
It was virtually unknown. Now, if it starts to build momentum, we continue, would that require additional staff? And that would be an additional cost.
Yes.
And you said that the administration, there was no lease, but the administration worked out some type of an agreement with the community
Memorandum of
college.
understanding for the use of the space. They did not charge us.
Okay.
And did you mention, I may have missed, did you mention how many staff each day?
We had one of our permanent staff, and we had a temporary employee on site as well to assist. So we had one staff member there.
That temporary employee was hired just for this?
No,
or
no, she's
temporary-
she was part of our regular temporary staff that we hire every election.
All right, anything else on the old business? Okay, thank you. I guess we'll move on to new business. Miss-
I'd
go ahead.
asked, the item of new business here is I think we largely addressed in the discussions with the solicitor. So obviously there are other questions, but I was anticipating that discussion being new business, but maybe there's some additional things that need to be discussed. But that's why I asked for that to be new business.
Do you have anything else that you want to address on that?
No, I think everything I was interested in hearing was covered in the previous discussion.
Okay, Ms. Geisinger, do you have anything?
No.
No?
I mean, I think I would just like to revisit that, from my understanding, there are a couple different ways, and we talked about this briefly, a couple different ways that we can address this lingering, unsure what our role is as an election commission. When I say our, I mean whoever is serving in this position. I would love to pave the way in some way. And I understand we can do that through county council, through a citizen's request, and I think there's a third way. I don't recall what that was. But there are a couple different ways that we can address changing it. If you look at, I printed it out. This is all the instruction. It's a half a page paragraph of what our role is and what our responsibilities are. There's no clarity on our relationship between the election commission and the executive, and there's wording in there that's, like Scott said, it's ambiguous. And I think moving forward, whoever is on the election commission, I think it's taken me, this is my first and maybe only term here, but it's taken me maybe this long to realize just how hamstringing that is, to have an unclear position and unclear any authority. We're not seeking for authority. We're not seeking to overturn elections. I think each of us, all five of us, genuinely want to have fair elections and want to be aware of what's going on and help voters to know what's going on as well. And I think that's part of our role. So I think going forward, just as a matter of statement, I think this is something we can look at in the Home Rule Charter and, again, maybe pave the way for the next people who are here.
I want to say I support that idea. I think a short handbook for the Election Commission would go a long way toward clearing up a lot of the questions that we've had to learn, through trial and error. It'd be very, very helpful to have a handbook that everyone can look at and say, okay, now I understand a lot more than from the very short description that happens in the Home Rule Charter. So.
I agree. I would hate to think of 5 brand-new people coming to join this board, which is a possibility, and that they would have to try and figure out what we tried to figure out as far as our responsibilities and obligations, and I agree that that's something that does need to be addressed in the Home Rule Charter.
And I think I'll just add before we adjourn that it's been a pleasure to serve with all of you guys and ladies over the course of the last 2 terms for me. I don't know what's going to happen in the next one. But I think we've set a good example, particularly early on. Maybe in the last few votes, it's gotten a little bit tense, but we've always seemed to come together, sometimes in split votes, sometimes in unanimous votes, and but we've always been able to have a conversation. And unfortunately, in today's world of politics, that's not something that you see very often. So I just want to say thank you, Chris. I know we've all had our share of back and forth. Mr. Vargo, you're still my pal. We can play Little League anytime. But I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I guess we'll see what happens in January.
And I don't know if the commission fully appreciated or if they were even there when I was talking to both counsel, not last year's general election, counsel for the Senate candidates and the national parties were extremely complimentary of the seriousness and dedication that this commission showed and the professionalism this commission showed with regard to, it was a lot of work dealing with there were a large number of provisional ballots, there were a lot of challenges to provisional ballots, and the counsel from both the state and national level were extremely complimentary of how this commission handled that. So I just wanted to pass, it's from a year ago, but it was important because it was this commission that did it, and they were very impressed with how you guys handled what was a very unpleasant situation. So, thank you. You all made me look good, so I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. If anyone else have anything? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody.